Hello there, all you friends, true believers, and newcomers alike. Superfly Comics Guy here, and we've been reviewing a lot of Marvel on the channel lately, like a lot. So I thought it was time to take a break, visit some of our friends at DC, the distinguished competition, and what better way than by taking a look at the most iconic female superhero ever, Wonder Woman. Featured here in Wonder Woman Earth 1, the graphic novel series by Morrison and Yanick Paquette. So even though these may not be omnis, we can still take a look at the cover, the spine, the contents, the build quality, and a flip through where I can talk a bit about the story with you guys and show you what to expect. So if you like the video, you know how to show it. And feel free to leave your thoughts down below or request some other books you might want to see on the channel. But with that out of the way, grab your tiara, grab your golden lasso, grab your bracers, and get ready to submit to loving authority. Let's go. Okay, so these are standard size hardcovers here we'll be looking at. Let's start with Volume 1. You'll find a very similar design language. It's pretty consistent with all three of these volumes here. The only big difference in terms of cover is that I think this is the only volume that has a blue DC logo for whatever reason. But you can see here some gorgeous images here by Yanick Paquette. Man, does he draw a nice Wonder Woman. Volume 2 and Volume 3 here. Here is what all three spines would look like together on your bookshelf if you're curious about that. And this is what the backs of the books look like. This is a graphic novel series, so there's no issue. It's not split up into issues or anything. It's one long story, just Volume 1, 2, and 3. But you can see Volume 1 has a cover price of 23 US, 30 Canadian. Volume 2 has a cover price of 25 US, 34 Canadian. And Volume 3 here has a cover price of 30 US, 40 Canadian. So just gradually increasing there. But let's start with Volume 1 here. I'm mostly going to be flipping through Volume 1 and 2. I don't really want to flip through too much of Volume 3 because, for fear of spoilers. But you can see here we got this very interesting cover here by Yanick Paquette featuring one Wonder Woman bound up in chains on a leash? Huh? What's going on there? Well, we'll talk about that. So this is Earth 1. If you're not familiar with DC's Earth 1 series, all you really need to know is it's not in the main DC continuity. It's its own universe type of thing. I think the original kind of pitch was like, make it to be kind of like our Earth, sort of more grounded, but really how grounded can you get when you're dealing with superhero characters, right? But basically you can compare it to like Marvel's Ultimate Universe. You know how that's separate and everything? Earth 1 is kind of like that for DC. So first things first, you'll need to know that this is kind of a modern story, but it's based on Golden Age Wonder Woman. Based on William Moulton Marston's work on Wonder Woman, who is the original creator of Wonder Woman. So you'll find a lot of the Amazonian culture here and traditions are rooted in this sort of bondage and loving submission because William Moulton Marston was a psychologist actually, and he was very much a proponent of this sort of bondage idea for Wonder Woman. Now, I could sit here and pretend like I know so much about the history of Wonder Woman, but that would just feel really disingenuous, and I don't want to pretend like I know more than I really do. So I'll just talk about how I felt about all of this. This is kind of like an origin story for Wonder Woman, but like new meets old type of thing. They do a bit of a spin on her made of clay origin, but it also goes into the origin of Themyscira here, which is referred to as Paradise Island in these pages. This sort of island without men, the society of warrior women that live here, and that's where Wonder Woman hails from. So the very first thing that happens in Volume 1 here is that Wonder Woman is on trial for interacting with a man. And if you're familiar with the Wonder Woman story, you might know who that man is. But she's on trial having to sort of explain herself, and then we see all these events happening in flashbacks here in Volume 1 as she recounts how that came to be. And man, we got to stop for a second and talk about the art here. Yanick Paquette, man, this is so good. I love so many things about this artwork. The paneling, But also just the way he draws Wonder Woman, my God. This book will make you feel some kind of something. That something usually being hubba hubba. But no, I mean, he does such a good job of capturing all these different facets of Wonder Woman all at the same time, which is super important because Wonder Woman has so many different sides to her. You know, she's strong and fierce, but she's also intelligent, but she's also curious. She can be very brash, and carefree, but also inspiring. Like, man, really, really well depicted in terms of the art here. I really, really dig the art. Sometimes in the beginning, there are some confusing moments. There's bits where the languages spoken get kind of confusing because at first Diana's not a native English speaker, but she sort of picks it up as she becomes more and more familiar with man's world, the world outside Paradise Island, outside Themyscira, basically our world. And that's kind of explored more in Volume 2. Because in Volume 2 here, this focuses more on Wonder Woman in man's world, actually, and becoming more familiar with it. And actually, this is where the book gets a lot more philosophical and starts to ask all these questions like, what's Wonder Woman's purpose in man's world? Should Themyscira remain hidden from the rest of the world? It actually gets pretty psychological as well, and they do some clever things with the villain in this volume. But generally, humanity's still kind of uncertain about Wonder Woman and the Amazons. So there's some conflict brewing there, and that kind of gets explored more in Volume 3. But yeah, definitely the focus is Wonder Woman, ideally, well, and the Amazons want to bring peace to man's world. It's just a question of what's the best way to do that. And like I said, the methods taken are very, very much rooted in the Golden Age interpretation of Wonder Woman and those ideals. So if you're expecting a very, very modern and refined version of Wonder Woman, it's not quite the same. It's not quite what you might expect because it's, like I said, sort of meant to be an ode to that Golden Age era. And that's exactly what Grant Morrison set out to do. And speaking of Morrison, I'm generally quite a fan of their work, which is actually why I picked this up, because I really enjoyed their various work on Batman, including things like Batman Gothic and Arkham Asylum, and also All-Star Superman I really enjoyed. So I wanted to get sort of their take on Wonder Woman, right? And this is actually the first proper Wonder Woman book I've ever read. So it was an interesting entry point for me. I feel like I got an interesting perspective. If you're someone who's usually intimidated by jumping into a Morrison title just because you find the writing can get kind of confusing, I'll be happy to report to you that it's not really the case here. It's generally pretty easy to follow, albeit Volume 3 does get a little bit Morrison-y. Volume 3 actually feels a little bit influenced by 1984, the novel by George Orwell, if you've ever read it. At times, it feels like there's sort of themes there as well. And I think Volume 3 is actually probably the weakest point. It kind of fell off towards Volume 3 for me. But 1 and 2 I generally really enjoyed. If you're curious about extras, these are standard-sized hardcover, so there's not a huge amount of extras. But each one does come with this sketchbook section at the back, and oh my God. Do you see what I'm talking about with the Yanick Paquette artwork? My Lord. But yeah, you can see there's like a little sketchbook at the back. I won't go through all the volumes, but this is sort of the idea that you'll be getting in each volume of this this series. These are the extras you can expect to find. But considering the artwork, not bad at all. Not bad at all. Happy to see these. Now, as far as build quality goes, I'll just use Volume 1 here as an example again. It's glued binding, not sewn, so there's no eye to expect or worry about. What that means is that the gutter loss is actually pretty high in this in these volumes. So you'll often lose quite a bit of the artwork, which is unfortunate. The pages are pretty decent quality. The colors pop very well. I'm quite a fan of the sort of uniform design that they went with for volumes 1, 2, and 3. But yeah, generally pretty good. The one thing I will mention about volume 3 is that I actually feel like it uses a different paper compared to the other two. Volume 1 and 2 have this sort of glossy finish on them, but in volume 3 here, it's still kind of glossy, but it's more matte in comparison to volume 1 and 2. It's not as laminated, I feel. So that's the only real difference I noticed, but generally still pretty okay. But all right, just to wrap up some thoughts here for you about Wonder Woman Earth 1. Overall, I'll say I don't think I was really blown away by the story as a whole. The third volume dipped for me for sure, but as the first proper Wonder Woman book I've ever read, I'll say I enjoyed the time I spent reading this. I feel like this book is often misunderstood by a lot of people because they miss the fact that it's kind of an homage to the Golden Age Wonder Woman. So I've seen it labeled as being, too woke or whatever, but I don't think that's what Grant Morrison was going for. I think they knew exactly what they wanted to do with this. It's an interesting marriage of classic and modern, that being, the 40s ideologies and ideas meets modern storytelling. And I do think you have to keep an open mind while reading it, but even if the writing doesn't grab you, the gorgeous art in here is most certainly a reason to at least check it out. But that's been my review of Wonder Woman Earth 1. Let me know what you thought about the book or the review, or if you have any questions, or if you have any recommendations for books you'd like me to review in the future. I do pay attention, and if I do have the books, I'll throw them on the list. But thank you so much for joining me today. I hope to catch you in another video real soon, guys, so you have yourself a great day for now. I've been Superfly Comics Guy, and until next time, you keep reading. Bye-bye, guys.